Good morning. I know most of you guys are huge fans of Corey Ivy's Lemon Twist C10, so I figured I'd take a few minutes this morning and kind of go over some of the modifications that we're making to it this time around. He got picked to go to UMI's King of the Mountain race in, well, next month. And so he noticed a couple issues with the truck that he wanted to try to improve upon before he goes to that race. And that's what it's here, getting fixed. So one of the biggest things that he would notice is on like a tighter autocross track where he's putting a lot of load on the front tires, he would feel the steering shaft get into the frame. And so there's only one thing that could be happening. Well, there's multiple things that could be happening here, but what we've come to find is that all these steering racks are either rubber mounted or people upgrade to urethane bushings. And what was happening on his truck, I think, were two different things. One was that he was loading up the big tire and it was moving the steering rack, or actually pivoting the steering rack in the bushings. So we pulled out the urethane bushings and we turned aluminum bushings for the steering rack, pressed the steel bolt sleeve back into that. And then we also made this steel girdle out of 7 gauge that the bolts go through the girdle, and then the girdle now bolts to the subframe. So now the rack cannot move, it can't twist, it can't move left to right. And the other thing is that we know that these cabs will move on the frame, and the frame actually is trying to twist, or twist from front to back, inside the cab mounts. And he had the factory rubber cab mounts, which are super soft, really low durometer rubber. And so we replaced his rubber mounts with our billet aluminum cab mounts. So now we took some of that torsional twist out of the frame by solid mounting the cab. And at least then too, we also know that the cab is not moving on the frame, so it can't move the steering rack. So big improvement there, in my opinion. And then one of the other main reasons he brought the truck to us was to fit his new fiber forged inner fender liners. He's never had inner fenders, and as I'm sure a lot of you guys have run into the same issue, that if you're running like a 315 or a 335 and you're super low, there's not really a good inner fender that's high enough and wide enough to clear that. A lot of guys try Mike Losh's Slosh Tub mild tubs. They're fantastic, but when you get to a pretty wide tire and low, they're not big enough, especially on the driver's side. So that's where Fiber Forge stepped in and has made a really wide set of inner fenders. They got a really high hump on the inside, to where that tire can turn lock and have plenty of clearance here and here. So that's where, a lot of other manufacturers don't have enough room, is here and here. So those are getting put in today. We took those over to our buddies at Hoosier Hot Rods. We mocked them up and fit them and trimmed them all out for Corey. And then we took them over there. They satin cleared them and then shot Raptor liner on the inside of them. And then we trimmed out the fenders a little bit more inside there to get these up in there. And then they satin blacked inside the fenders. So that ought to look pretty cool when it's all together. And then these are some brackets that we got to paint this morning that retain the inner fenders to the inside of the fender itself. So I think that's really the gist of the big mods for this go around. Oh, no, it's not. We got one more. So Corey had No Limits Gen 3 wide ride front end, which had this cross member, and it had a big steel sleeve that came in here to hold one really long bolt, and then it had one tab out here that you would weld to your stock frame. Totally worked, but it had these really long bolts that were a huge pain in the butt to get in and out, because once they would weld all that big sleeve in there, I think that it would get a little bit of binding. So the bolt was really hard to get lined up through the entire control arm. The control arms are fabricated, the subframe's fabricated, so when you weld that, there's always a little bit of deflection from welding. And those bolts were a pain to get in. And if there was any type of misalignment between the arm and that sleeve, they would blow out the lower control arm bushings, which were urethane. And Corey's had definitely done that. So what we did is kind of did a Gen 4 wide ride modification. So we cut that tube out of here, and when the control arms were out, we put Delrin bushings on the control arms and then individual bolts. So we put a 1 bolt here, and then we built this pocket here for the control arm, boxed it in, welded it to the frame, boxed in the frame there so that this bushing can't this control arm can't try to bend the frame up here. And then this is a quarter wall, or actually this is probably 3/8 wall tube that's a big giant reinforcement here that keeps this from trying to go this way or try to roll up. So yeah, made that modification. His upper control arms already had Delrin in them, so he should get no deflection, no bushing deflection in the arms. Yeah, all awesome modifications. So we're gonna try to get the front end put together today, and he's gonna come get it Saturday. So once it's down and on the ground, we'll get some more video of it down outside and maybe drive around. So anyways, thanks a lot. All right, Corey should be, well, Corey's here right now to pick up his truck. So anyways, real quick before they walk in, I'm gonna show you the engine bay. So this is what we got wrapped up for Corey. This was one of the big jobs, is getting these Fiber Forge carbon fiber inner fender wells installed, and they're in, and I think they look great. He had already trimmed off a lot of this outer fender so these 335s could clear. So what we did is we had to trim off like a banana shaped piece out of the inner fender. So that's why we made these aluminum brackets to hold up the fender there. And then we just made like a rubber splash shield that rivets to the carbon fiber fender and then rivets to the outside of the fender there. So that keeps all the moisture out. Had to redo the air intake to kick the air filter this way, but it's all done.
She's the one that always helps it fill this fast. Spiky hair.
All right, okay. We're all done, and now we're just standing out here shooting the breeze, standing in the shade.
Checking to see what kind of.
Sean brought some Italian beef for me on a pretzel bun.
That's how you do it.
So what do you think?
Style.
What's coming up? Talk to me.
King of the Mountain. Got
2.5 weeks, 3 weeks right now.
Got a test event in Cummins. Gonna try to get shock set up.
In Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, gonna go up on a Friday, come back on Friday. Got a friend with a car show on Saturday. Gonna come back and go to it.
So that is the weekend that I'm gonna be in Wisconsin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I've got a buddy that works for DSC, and he's gonna help me get my shock set up. He's curious because he's dealt with JRIs and a few others, but he's curious to get the Viking triples and get a hand on them.
Good. Yeah, I'm the same way. I haven't messed with adjusting mine at all. So we're both gonna have a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, gonna use a pyrometer, try to get tire pressure, get max tire contact, so we can go play with 2,800-pound vehicles at King of the Mountain with driver.
Cool. Well, thanks as always for bringing your truck here.
Yeah, appreciate it.